What the is we doing?
Hello, welcome back to Shots of Info, episode 23. Cheers. Hey, Jean, and I'm drinking some bourbon of
Yeah,
everyone.
from the bottle.
Today's episode we will be going over interesting topic actually. I never really talked or said this aloud in the past. Forgiveness. I think it's a huge theme, especially on a personal level. But yeah, I never discussed my ideas or my thought on this specific topic. I don't know if you ever had a chance to do that.
No. I mean, it's kind of interesting, right? So, I mean, like the day we're recording this, it's technically Easter, right?
Mhm.
So it's a religious holiday, and a lot of it is about, giving stuff up. Part of it is about forgiveness, right? Um, so it's interesting. The topic itself, I've never really dived deep into it, like having a conversation like this here.
Yeah.
Um, but personally, for me, forgiveness is something that is important.
Mhm.
But obviously, I don't know what's like the best way to go about it because I can't tell you that I'm the most forgiving person. I do forgive. Like, don't get me wrong. If it's the little things,
Mhm.
like no sweat. Like, somebody doesn't show up on time. Whatever, that's fine. I can forgive that because like I do it sometimes. So it's like, no harm, no foul there.
Right.
Obviously, then sometimes bigger things happen, right? Like where people betray your trust, and then forgiveness becomes something that is difficult to do. Because again, like at the end of the day, what you would want to do is kind of reverse the roles, right? Like if you were in their position, would you have done the same thing that has put you in this place where you don't feel like you can forgive someone? Um, but a lot of that just comes down to like the relationships you have with people, right? I don't know. I guess it depends how trusting you are. Like, would you say you're a trusting person and you can forgive easily?
Right. I believe so, yeah. I think on my perspective on forgiveness and specific uh to this topic is that I do tend to forgive like quite easily. Uh very easily actually. I believe that holding grudges or just having that in the back of your head, I think it burns you rather than, like the people that did you dirty. Eventually, you also believe in karma. So I'm
Right.
strong with karma as well. So I think they go hand to hand. The one thing though, I never forget. So I
Yeah,
forgive. I can
absolutely.
forgive whatever minor or big things. I, let it go. But when it comes to like trusting or just having that trust that I had in a person or in the past, it changes. I think once somebody breaks that, I think for me is really hard to forget that ever happened. And it will always kind of like I wouldn't hold it against them or not anything, but it will always be in the back of my head, just be aware or be cautious and telling me not to trust this person like I trusted in the past. And this actually comes down to one philosophy that I read a couple years ago. It says that leave the door halfway open, and that this just reminds me of what the door is right here. Is that never close the doors on somebody just because, like, completely. Don't shut it up, like, completely. I think leaving the door halfway open is important just because you never know what life has for you. And there might be cases where you might need their help or whatever, or circumstances might change and things will pop up. So when it comes to forgiveness, I do tend to forgive. I forgive quite easily. I don't hold grudges or anything, but I definitely don't forget. I think that's the best way to
Right.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think the not forgetting part is important, right? Because we can go back to like human nature here. Like does human nature change? For
Hmm.
some people, the argument is that it doesn't, right? Some people are just stuck the way they are. For other people, like for me, myself included, I definitely think that people can change, right? People can mature, people can develop and grow, change personalities, right? Like just because you are a certain way right now, that doesn't mean you're going to be the same way, like 5, 10 years from now. Perspective and different life circumstances will dictate who you are and will change who you are, right? Because again, sometimes they grow up in an environment where, being deceitful or lying or manipulative is kind of like the way they learn how to develop, right? Like they got what they wanted by doing these things, and they found that this was the most opportunistic way to, achieve the goals that they wanted, or it was at the very least the only thing that they can think of that would work to get what they wanted.
Yeah.
But in any case, like, when we go to like situations where, you had trust in a family member and they betray your trust, or you had trust in a friend and they betray your trust. Like those are things that, when you hold it deep within you, like these grudges that you might have with people, you don't forgive.
Mm.
It does consume you, right? It's like they say, like, what is it? Anger is like a poison, right?
Yeah.
So like, just because, you might not forgive somebody, holding that within you in terms of just like never letting go of whatever happened, it just becomes something that internally destroys you. Um, Again, whether that be something like stress, right? Like you're stressing about this, you're always thinking that this is going to happen in the back of your mind. Because this happened with one person, now you think this is going to happen with another person. So now you're not as trusting with anybody. So that makes it difficult to have relationships with maybe significant others or just friends. Like you meet new people, you meet new acquaintances. And then over time, you just can't develop meaningful relationships simply because you haven't learned how to forgive.
Yep.
And that goes a long way.
Absolutely. I think forgiveness is crucial when it comes, especially to friendships and relationships with family and friends is important because we're humans at the end of the day. That same way that they made a mistake, I can make the same mistake. And I have done that in the past also. And, having someone forgive you teaches you to also, you be, um, you know, teaches you to forgive as well. So I think that's one thing, and something that you mentioned about, people tend to change, we improve and we mature eventually. I think that's kind of like the philosophy of leaving that doorway half open, just because you don't wanna you kind of want to give a second chance. I mean, it changes when this person does you dirty like 10 times or like 3 or 4 times. There is a limit. There is a boundary that you have to set it yourself as well. And I think it comes person by person. Because I wouldn't
Exactly.
hang out or just be friends or stay in connection with somebody who has done me dirty like 4 or 5 times. Like that's already by. But when it's like the first time or second time, maybe yes, I forgive. But
Well, there's one thing I want to add, right? So like, some people might not know that they're doing you dirty, or they might not know that what they're doing is something that you don't like, right?
right,
So that's something where like you want to have a conversation first, right? You definitely want to open that door of communication or that line of communication before you start going out of your way to like, phase them out of your life. If it's like something that they're continuously doing, like the same kind of actions or transgressions. Um, because, you might do something that you personally didn't know that offended me, or made me uncomfortable, or whatever the situation is, and I just kind of hold that against you, but you never really know, and I never really tell you. So now there's this resentment that builds up, and then it's not good for anybody. But like if you do something and then I tell you, and then you're like, oh man, my bad, I'm sorry, I didn't know, and you don't do it again, all right, so we're cool, all is forgiven, like nothing to worry about. But if I tell you and you say, okay, I'm sorry, and then you do it again, like that's when that concept of like forgive but never forget comes into play. Like again, like this is the type of person you can't necessarily trust, because obviously you told them something you didn't like and they continue to do it. And it doesn't have to happen in just relationships, right? Like this can happen in the workplace, this can happen um, in family relations, relationships with significant others, or whatever the situation is. Like it's important that you understand where that boundary lies, and opening the dialogue first is important, and then from there you can reassess depending on how they act.
Yeah, I think one thing that I want to add to it as well is that, learning how to forget or be mindful about these things is important, because also it helps you to develop that sense of understanding and taking responsibility when you do something bad to others. And I seen myself doing this with people who, I love and trust. And if I did them dirty, or, you know, like you mentioned, sometimes we don't know that we're doing bad until we realize that it's bad. And I do apologize. Like, this had happened with my sisters. Usually when this is a long time ago, I'm drunk, I'm just very stubborn. And then, next day I'm like, I apologize for my mistakes. If I said something, I did something wrong. And I think, yeah, it comes from experience on my end, to be honest. And even with you, I apologize for things that I have done to you. And, having that, taking that ownership, taking that responsibility helps you not do it again. Because
Right.
you have to be on both sides. Like, you will do something dirty to somebody eventually. Like, that's just life. And to be honest, we're humans, and understanding that we are gonna make mistakes that are gonna hurt people, or say things that are gonna hurt people, I think, um, just understand, take responsibility, and be on the other side, so you can also have the mindset when somebody does similar things to you, you know. So another thing too is that, forgiving people, or just letting it go, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, is crucial, just so you don't build that up within you, like the resentment, the grudges, because it is poison. Like you mentioned, it is poison, and the more that you have it, the more you hold it in, I feel like the more you attract this type of things, these negative energies. And
Mhm.
that's actually what the book that I sent it to you, and now I will share with everybody that I've been listening to, The Unfettered Soul by Michael Singer. I think I sent you the link for this one, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The audiobook. It's really good. It actually mentions about this. Like, there's a part about, the more that you hold things within you, the more that you close yourself to not forgiving, not loving, or whatever, it affects you in a negative way more than anything. So yeah, I think learning to forget, no, learning to forgive is sort of a skill, because it takes a lot.
Yeah.
It takes a lot, honestly. But I think for me, on a personal level, I had to be on the other side and have people forgive me to understand the value of it, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think it's an interesting topic, but yeah, I think like I mentioned once
So
again.
I was thinking, right, like one of the things about forgiveness, like, if you want to get more into like the philosophical or like the therapeutical version of forgiveness, right? A lot of people oftentimes end up coming up with a lot of baggage or trauma from like their childhood related to their parents, right? And that's usually one of the biggest things where you need to figure out forgiveness, in the sense of like, I don't know what your childhood could have been, or how my childhood could have been. I mean, we can only speak from personal experience, right? But oftentimes we'll end up finding like these common themes of just like, you know, I don't think this was like the best thing to do, but realistically, my parents didn't know any better, so I have to forgive them, right? Because if I don't, then I'm just going to be holding this grudge against them for no reason, or you might have a valid reason, but at the end of the day, it doesn't benefit you, right? And that kind of goes with going back with like holding in this energy is just a poison. Forgiveness, the whole point of it is to just let the weight go, right? Because the more you hold on to stuff, the bigger the baggage, the bigger the whatever the situation, right? Like the bigger the weight on your shoulders, the less you can move, right? Like you'll always be stifled. You'll always be slower than you should be. Again, I go back to developing relationships, right? Like if you're not quick to trust people, then you might run into a situation where you meet somebody that's good for you, right? Like in a relationship sense, or maybe in a business sense, right? Like this person has great opportunities, like there's a great connection, but you're not willing to trust them, or you're not willing to take a a chance on whatever the situation is, and thus you miss the opportunities, right? So like it's those things that play a role later on in life, just simply because you're not willing to forgive now, or you're not willing to do the work to forgive, right? Because there's such a thing as like, go to a therapist to kind of figure this out for yourself. You can't do that. Other people can figure it out for themselves, and that's great, but some people need help. That's kind of like the idea there, that you do want to figure this out, simply because if you don't, inevitably, I firmly do believe that it will slow you down, and you won't be able to live the life that you kind of want.
Definitely. Just to add that up, I think you bring an important topic here, is that parents relationship. I think forgiving your parents is crucial to learn to be an adult, especially. Once you reach to a certain point in your life, you realize that you sort of become a copy and paste of your parents, the relationship that they had, the role model, not just your parents, like the people that influence in your childhood a lot. I think, my bad. I think it plays a huge role. So forgiving your parents should be the one thing that I would suggest everybody to do. And that's from personal experience, because I held grudges against my dad for a very, very long time. And grudges that, to be honest, they were all kind of like nonsense, because we make that up at some type of way,
Yeah, we
So
always build it up in our heads, right?
yeah, it's kind of like we over exaggerate it a little bit.
Yep.
And yeah, so long story short, I ended up forgiving him, letting it go, and now I have a very, very like good relationship with him, and I love him very much. So I think forgiving your parents is crucial in one's life. Then I think you gotta forgive yourself, because everybody makes mistakes. And sometimes, when things come up, and let's say you want to start going to the gym, and you don't want to start going to the gym. So you gotta be easy on you, and you gotta forgive yourself and give yourself the opportunity to try again. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, if somebody fails you, you usually forgive them and give them another chance, but you should do that to yourself as well. I think that's the second person that you gotta forgive. So your parents, yourself, and I think it's also valuable to forgive anybody who has done dirty to you, like super bad, who hurt you. Like it can be a partner that cheated on you, it can be a friend that betrayed your trust. Forgive it. You don't have to. I mean, if you have the opportunity to tell them, tell them. But if you broke the relationship and you don't have contact, just write it out and just let it go. Forgive that. And yeah, I think those are the three persons I think you truly have to analyze and kind of like just meditate on it and forgive. And from there is like, once again, it comes naturally eventually. Like you know me, would you say I'm very trusting person?
Yeah, oh well, yeah, I would say
No.
so. Yeah.
Because the thing is that it kind of balances out. When you learn to forgive, you actually become more trusting for some reason. And I have seen that with myself. Like a lot of my friends, family, for no reason, they trust me a lot. I give them that trust. I tell them I'm gonna go live in Ecuador for 6 months, or I'm going to Asia for like a couple months. They trust that I will be alive. I will eventually come back. I will be, good. Like they don't need to tell me like, hey, like blah blah blah. Nothing. They trust me. Like for some reason, I have that, and I noticed that ever since I was in high school. Like, some of my friends' parents, they will let my friend go out because I was going, or I was part of. I was somewhat of a bad influence, anyways, but for some reason,
That's for sure.
but
But
yeah,
yeah, like I definitely see that. Again, definitely like the forgive your parents, forgive yourself, and then forgive whoever's wronged you. Because again, at the end of the day, like this is again, it really just depends on like what your belief systems are and what it is that you like hold yourself to. But again, I definitely feel like karma is something that's definitely out there, and whatever you put out there is what you're going to get back, right?
Yeah.
If you're willing to forgive and be trusting to others, then others will do the same for you, and then you kind of create this upward momentum, upward spiral, and life just becomes an ever revolving thing where you put out good energy and you get good energy back. Uh, if you don't forgive, then again, you internalize all of that. You will attract the negative energy, and then that just creates this vicious cycle where just like, dude, you will never forgive anybody, and nobody trusts you because you don't forgive anybody. So it's just a matter of like, what do you want your life to be? And then from there, you can start making the right moves in the sense of like forgiveness of others, your parents, yourself, for the little things, right? Because oftentimes it's the little things that just compound over time.
Mhm.
Like, get over it or understand that this is not something that's all about you. Life just happens and people don't really think about it that often. So just forgive. And
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah. I think you closed that very well right there. I believe forgiveness is one of those things that takes time to develop, just because I feel like everybody's different. So, whoever is listening to this, take this as a grain of salt. I think that's the saying. Like, if it resonates with you, if you see yourself not being a forgiving person, work on it. I will definitely suggest that, just because it changes your perspective, and sometimes you gotta wear the shoes of the person that did you dirty, or and being in that shoes, I think it changes your perspective, and you, once again, like you mentioned, karma is a bitch, so you don't have to do much. If they did you super dirty, like cheated on you, or lied to you or whatever, trust me, life would take care of it, and you don't have to move a finger. You just gotta let it go.
Yep.
Once again, energy flows. So if you keep building that, it's just kind of like you're hurting yourself eventually. But yeah, I think my philosophy on it: forgive, but don't forget. I think that's kind of like the way that I go about. What are your thoughts? What about forgetting things? Anything to add on that?
No, I mean, again, you don't want always be cautious because you never know, right? Like, again, life is dualistic, right? There's always a double side to things. Like, a coin has two sides, right? There's a reason for like these analogies and these metaphors. Um, they exist simply because some people never change, right? And if you're not willing to understand that, then you're going to be naive, right? So, like, again, you go back to you want to forgive, but you don't want to forget simply because you don't want to retain the negative energy. But at the same time, you don't want to put yourself in a position where, like, you just forgot what this person did and it was a really bad thing. And now you're placed in an even worse situation later on. So definitely want to hold on to the thoughts or whatever ended up happening simply because you never know. Yeah, that's pretty much it from my side.
Yeah, I think once again, I think leaving the door halfway open is important, just because I don't know. I like to believe, I like to trust some people. I like to believe that people are good. I like to see the good in people. I think that's kind of like where I go with. But, so forgetting, I think if somebody does you dirty, if it's like crazy dirty, like, it impacted you directly, I think don't forget what this person
Yeah,
did. Because
yeah,
next time that, they come around, you will have kind of like some report, kind of like mixing matching with some finance
right,
terminology.
right, right,
You will have some reports, some kind of like ground to base on the
right,
relationship. But yeah,
right, right.
cool. I think that
I think
wraps
that's
it up.
it.
Cheers.
Cheers, my friend.
Something. This is a conversation between friends.
None of what is said here should be taken as legal advice.
We are not experts in any way.
Take what resonates and leave the rest.